Thank you, and once again, We're thankful for Glenn Flood filling in on music, and Michael's on vacation. I don't know why the teachers go on vacation. There's not too many announcements this week. Fortunately, we have no death announcements. Please note Ministry in Action, Bible study on Tuesday. There's a misprint. There's no Bible study until September. Men in Tent, I presume, is still going on. And then next Sunday is the worship service. Please note the places where you can volunteer and the shut-ins. If you happen to know someone to shut in, I'm sure they'd appreciate a call or a visit. And once again, if you haven't found your offering envelopes, they're always available through the office or at the back. And the rumor has it that in the next week or so, Reverend Glenn Eagle will celebrate a birthday. Now, I'm told that he only really is half as old as he looks.
I'll be old enough to retire. In that vein, let's do this. This is the envelope for an anniversary, and it's for Bruce and Jerry. It's their 58th anniversary. And I said to Bruce, because we messed this up before, and I said to him, "Is that true?" And he goes, "Yes." Well, happy anniversary. I get to speak last, so I can. The other announcement I had was Barb White isn't here today. She wasn't able to come, and so she asked me to pass this on. Chris, one of the guys at McDougall, needs a ride home from Camp McDougall on Friday at 4 o'clock. So if anybody can manage that, let me know or let Barb know. Friday at 4 o'clock, it's pickup at Camp McDougall. She was going to do that, but she can't do that. So let me know on that. I think that's all the announcements. So let us carry on with the Lord Prepare Me. That's that. Let's turn to the call to worship. In the beauty of the earth,
God calls us to praise.
in the excitement of life,
God calls us to live abundantly.
in the quiet of the sanctuary,
God calls us to worship.
Let's sing hymn 315, Holy, Holy, Holy.
Lord God Almighty, earth
Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity. I think that's the only place in the English language where we use the word work, which work and art. I've never heard that word before. Let's join together in the opening prayer. God, we approach this time of worship with thanksgiving and gratitude, with praise and anticipation, with hope and willingness. We ask that your Spirit will lead us. Amen. And let's join together in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And let's turn to Teach Me God to Wonder, 299. Okay, so it's the children's time, so if you're a child, heart, mind, physical, whatever, come on up the front, and I want the choir to come down and gather in front of the reading table. Is this working? Okay, you can, actually everybody just stay standing right in front of the community table because we're going to need you so you can see. So you stand up there with the choir. And next week you can join the choir. So, Christian faith is a reflection of who we are. And I maintain that we need to have a positive influence on the world around us. Because there's lots of people who don't have a positive influence. I had a Facebook from a fellow who is not a happy person at all. and somebody was moving, the next door neighbors, and they brought them over a bunch of food because they were moving, the neighbors were moving back to Japan. And his only comment was, well, what the heck am I supposed to do with all this food? Why would they give me this food? It's like, are you kidding? Like, I wrote back and said, give it to somebody else. Like, so, here's your job. I believe that we are a reflection of our faith. So we're going to start off easy. And I'm going to ask you to smile at the congregation. It's already working. Now, don't point. I'm going to ask you all to start to laugh. And look at the congregation and start to laugh. You can pick somebody out of your but just start to laugh. That's it. Come on. Let's make a laugh. Make a big smile. Come on, let's work on a laugh. That's all. You can go back. The point is to listen to all of you laugh. And what was funny? Absolutely nothing, except that we were all having a good time. And I think that's important for our faith, is to share the joy that Jesus has given to us, and the optimism that is so missing in a society in which we have. So when you're out this afternoon, just walk up to somebody and smile at them, and then run. No. Just walk up and smile at somebody and say, I'm smiling because of my faith. Okay? All right, you guys go back. Thank you, choir. That was risky. Freely we have received, freely let us give the offering will now be received. pray. God, these are the gifts you first gave to us. We give them back to you now as a token of the love that we have for you. We ask that we use in your service in this world. Amen.
The Old Testament reading for this morning is taken from the book of Jeremiah 22, 13 to 16. Woe to him who builds his house by unrighteousness and his upper rooms by injustice, who makes his neighbors work for nothing and does not give them their wages, who says, I will build myself a spacious house with large upper rooms, and who cuts out windows for it, paneling it with cedar, and painting it with vermilion. Are you a king because you compete in cedar? Did not your father eat and drink and do justice and righteousness? Then it was well with him. He judged the cause of the poor and needy, and all was well. Is that not what it means to know me, says the Lord? Our responsive reading this morning is taken from the book of Isaiah 60 and can be found on Voices United on page 886, and it'll be a sung refrain. Arise, shine, for your light has come. God's glory has risen among you. But upon you God shall rise. God's glory will appear among you. Nations will walk on your light. Raise your eyes and look around. All gather together. All come to you.
They will bring their sons from afar. They will carry your daughters by babies in their arms.
Then you will see and be radiant. Your heart will thrill and rejoice.
Because they will bring you to see healthy. The wealth of nations shall come to you.
A multitude of camels will cover you, the young camels of Midian and Ephah and Sheba.
They will bring gold and frankincense, and will bear God's glory. Arise, behold the light. Arise, behold the light. Your light has come. Your light has come. Hallelujah.
Your land will no longer hear the cry, violence, nor ruin and destruction, your borders.
But you will call your walls salvation, and
Your gates praise. No more will you need the sun for your light by day, nor the moon's brightness by night.
But God will be your everlasting light.
Your God will be your glory.
Arise, behold the light. Arise, behold the light. Your light has come. Your light has come. Hallelujah.
New Testament reading for today is taken from the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verses 40 to 42. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward. May God add his blessing to the reading of his holy word. The next hymn is hymn number 567, Will You Come and Follow Me?
Let my love be shown, will let my name be known, will let my life be grown in you and you in me. Will you leave yourself behind if I call your name? Will you care for cruel and kind and never be the same? Will you risk the hostile stare? Should you like what you like to share? Will you let me answer prayer in you in me? Will you let the blinded see if I might call your name? Will you set the prisoners free and never be the same? Will you kiss the leper clean and do such as this unseen and admit to what I mean in you in me? Will you love the you hide if I might call your name? Will you quell the fear inside and never be the same? Will you use the faith you found? Will you shake the world around? Will my sight and touch and sound in you in me? Christ your summons echoes true when you can call my name. Let me turn and follow you and never be the same. In your company alone, where your love and footsteps show, as I'll move and live and grow in you in me. I was kind of waiting for the screen to come up and show me what this title of the sermon was so I know. I started with a story of what I call a simple solution. A woman ordered some soap from a company and it came in a package, but one of the boxes of soap that came was empty. For whatever reason, one box was empty. So she wrote back to the company and said, this is what happened. And the company refunded the money and sent her a little more soap to make her happy, all the rest of it. But now they had a problem. Why did one box come out without soap in it? So they went down to the conveyor belt, the line, and they watched. And every so often, a box of soap, or a box would come out without soap in it. This was a problem. There didn't seem to be any pattern to it, just sort of random. So they called the company that had made the machine in the first place, and they came down and they looked at it, and they tried to figure out what was wrong with it. Couldn't figure out, and their recommendation was to buy a new machine. They didn't want to do that. So they hired an engineer, and the engineer came down and looked at the machine, and looked at the belt, and looked at all the rest of it. Then they ran a video to see what was going on and what the problem was with that. They couldn't figure out what to do with it. So they finally x-rayed the machine to see if there was some glitch inside the machine. This all cost a lot of money. Finally, they were about to make the decision that the only solution was to buy a new machine. So they were discussing this. One of the workers stepped forward and said, There's a lot easier solution for that. And of course, he was met with a certain, distaste, like, oh yeah, we've had all these engineers, we've had all these people in, we've been looking at this thing, we've talked to the company, and you think you have a solution for our problem, do you? Well, what's your solution? He said, well, if you just put a fan beside the conveyor belt, it'll blow the empty boxes off the belt. You won't have to worry about them. Sometimes there's a simple solution for things. And today's scripture is very similar to that. It was a simple illustration of what Christianity is all about. When Jesus says, give somebody a cup of cold water, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. Jesus was speaking from the premise of a very regimented Jewish faith. A Jewish faith which had so many rules and regulations that it was said if you followed all the rules and regulations of the Jewish faith at that time, there were 630 extra commandments they had. If you followed all the rules and regulations, you would die. There was no way that you could live and follow all of those rules and regulations. Some of them, when you read back through the Old Testament, some of them are truly astounding. The one that luckily our society doesn't put it in, and that is that if you curse your mother and father, you shall be put to death. Wouldn't be a lot of us here, would there? That's Leviticus 29, verse 9. But from there, read forward. And the rules and regulations they have and the stipulations that have about what you can do, what you can't do. The one I feel really badly about is, I don't know, around 18 or something like that. And that is that if you, how can I put this? If you have relations with an animal, well, they kill you and the animal. Like, what did the poor animal ever do? But anyway, there was all these rules and regulations. Jesus was coming out of that very strict group of rules. And he says, just give somebody a glass of water. What an incredibly simple illustration of what Christian faith is all about. In today's church, we struggle with that as well because we've had a history of a lot of rules and regulations. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of expectations. And I know certain churches, you can't come forward and have communion unless you've been baptized and you have to be a member of this church. And the United Church for a long time had that stipulation as well. You couldn't have communion until you were baptized. You couldn't be baptized, well, you could be baptized when you're young. Some churches, you can't be baptized till you're a certain age, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. We have a lot of these rules and regulations. We don't necessarily pay attention to a lot of them, and I think that's one reason why I like this church, because you don't pay attention. But what often happens is the rules, instead of helping the faith, the rules become the faith. The liturgy that sometimes we're supposed to follow becomes the faith. And I know when I speak to other ministers, you might want to turn that video off. When I talk to other ministers, they're shocked that I might use a scripture that isn't in the liturgy, because that's what it says for this week. And I know when I drive by some churches and I'll see a sign up saying, this is the second Sunday of Epiphany. And I thought, how many people on their way to the hardware store have any idea what that means? We're going through Pentecost, we're going through Epiphany. Those are words that only church people understand. People outside have no idea what that word might know. There's a saying about Christianity that says, Christianity is to control yourself and help others. When you get to the point where you're controlling others to help yourself, you've missed the point of your faith. A simple act of kindness sums up what we're here all about. The rule is if you ignore the needs of the people around you, then you're not a loving person. No matter what you may profess, you're not a loving person. You have the expression, we all are familiar with that, Sunday Christians. At the minute, and I did have a t-shirt that said, on Sunday it's love you and all the rest of it. By Monday morning it's, and I can't finish that. sentence. Not polite anyway. It's not always easy to be kind. It's not always easy to reach out to other people. And our society, by and large, tries to put limitations on that. If you're following the news at all, my sister's a minister in Barrie, and she's fighting this regulation they have in Barrie right now. And Barrie Town Council is fighting over it. I believe that it's passed, but it's now being revisited. And that is that you cannot give any food or water to anybody in any of the parks. So if you see somebody who needs something in a park, it is now illegal to give them food or water. It also pretty much screws up your family picnic, doesn't it? Okay, kids, it's 10 cents for the sandwich, you know. But it is difficult, and our society is getting more to that extent, that it's getting more and more difficult just to reach out to people and to help people. It's not always easy. You remember there was a movie called Entertaining Angels. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's the life story of Dorothy Day. She became a Roman Catholic worker, and she started some homes, if you will. It was in the 1920s, very stark contrast to some of the regimented churches that were there in the 20s. And many of the churches then had incredibly strict rules of exceptions. And in one scene, Dorothy's workers have revolted against her and against working with these people. And she goes and she prays, and this is the prayer that she has. Lord, these brothers and sisters of yours, the ones you want me to love, let me tell you something. They smell. They have lice and tuberculosis. Am I to find you in them? Well then, you're ugly. You stink. You wet your pants. You vomit. How would anybody love you? And I think that's a very powerful prayer, because we're faced with that. If that really is a reflection of Jesus, or if that really is a person with Jesus in them, it's great if it's somebody who you think is a wonderful person. But if they're a tough person to deal with, it becomes a very tough situation. And then also you throw in the risk factor. If you're kind to somebody, are they going to follow you home? Are they going to check out where you live? Are they going to give you some kind of a disease if you shake your hand? Are they going to steal from you if you aren't aware of what's going on? So there is that risk factor, and I would advise you to be careful of that risk factor. But that doesn't mean you have to end reaching out to other people. There are other ways of helping people in the world that we're in. One of the ideas we were looking at the other day was the idea of a lot of homeless people need someplace to have a shower. So we were thinking about the idea, why don't we come up with a mobile shower unit that we could take downtown? It's a long way off having it in place now, but that's an idea. Maybe that's something we should get behind, and just have a shower that we could hook up to the city water and have that. I'll have to talk to somebody in the city, but that would be an outreach idea that would be a very practical idea that we could have. In the early church, they took Jesus' words to heart. They had communities. They had what we would now call communes. And when you came into that commune, you were welcome. No matter who you were accepted. Yes, you did give over, and some of them you did give over everything you had, and they used all that to make sure that everybody was equally fed and equally paid for. But there was a bed, there was warmth, there was companionship for anybody who needed it. They also had a rule that a minister or traveling minister should be welcomed wherever he or she went, and it was she as well. In those days, there were male and female ministers. It was a 3-day rule, however, and that was that if a traveling preacher, I hesitate to say this, the traveling preacher had 3 days to come in and preach, and if they stayed any longer than 3 days, they got kicked out, because obviously they weren't a real preacher if they couldn't say everything they had to say in 3 days. So there you are. I've been here more than 3 days. So over the years, the church has had a lot of rules and regulations. Right now, most churches, I won't even say most churches, a lot of churches are accepting of people. There are still some major barriers and holdbacks. And again, I think you are the most welcoming church I've seen for a long time. You're an incredibly welcoming group of people. But we need to keep that up in our everyday life. And when you reduce it down to something simply as giving somebody a glass of cold water, you don't realize the power that that has. One of the stories I read recently online that illustrates the point. Fella comes to church for the first time. Again, not this church. Fella comes to church for the very first time. He comes in and he's unsure of where he should sit, when to stand, when to sit down, etc. And as he stands up I'm thinking he wasn't terribly well clothed. When he stands up to sing a hymn, he drops the hymn book, and it goes down, there's no carpet, so bang, on the ground. A couple of people turn around and glare at him. So he's feeling badly already, so he picks the hymn book up, and he tries to hold it, and because he's nervous, he falls again, bang! And the usher comes up beside and says, "Come on out with me." And so they take him out to the side. As he's going out, because he's been disturbing the church service, as he's going out, a number of people sort of glared at him. And the usher said, maybe you'd be more comfortable somewhere else. Where you go? He didn't know what to do, so he went down to the local bar, which must have been open Sunday morning. Where's that? Anyway, he goes into the bar, and he's still upset. He's still nervous. He sits down at a table, and as he sits down at the table, he spills a cup of water that's there. And immediately, the waitress rushes over with a cloth, and she wipes up and says, "Oh, don't worry about that. We've got lots of water. Don't worry, we're fine. Get you another glass of water." And somebody comes over and says, "Look, you look really upset. How about I'll get you a cup of coffee." They buy him a cup of coffee. He sits there. Somebody sits down and sits with him and talks to him. You know where that man spends his time now? It's pretty obvious. Jesus is saying, simplify it down to just a cup of cold water. Just reach out and help somebody. It may not seem like a major thing at the time, but it is. Think of the most Christ-like person that you know, and think about what it is that they do. They're usually just kind people who helped you when you had a difficult situation or a time when you were needing help. They reached out to you. We are called to go out and help others, even if it means just standing there and smiling at other people or even laughing at them, but be careful about that. Because that's what Christ wants us to do. He wants us to go out and just make the world a better place. Maybe one cup of cold water at a time. It's not a huge thing to do, but it's sometimes we get around the rules and make the Christian faith just a simple way that we reach out to other people. Let's join together in prayer. God, we give you thanks for your Son, Jesus. We give you thanks that he came to break down the barriers, that he came to reach out to other people, but also to us. That he has given us some ideas and some solutions. That he has given us ways that we can make this world a better place. That we can make people feel included. That we can make people feel welcome. And that we can make them feel like their life is worth living as much as ours or more than ours. Thank you, God, for the opportunities that you bring to us, the moments that we are given in which we can share our faith. Thank you for the opportunities that we have taken, places that we have been and people that we have met, and maybe people that we have helped out a little bit. We thank you for your Spirit that has given us that power to reach out to other people, the courage it takes to reach out, to smile, to help somebody, to give them a hand when they needed it. We give you thanks, God. We give you thanks, God, that you have given to each of us a glass of cold water that we can share with other people. Help us to be like your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. And let us turn to hymn 633. us on our road. We wait for answer promise and will misery flow. We need not for places, you meet us all around. Our covenant is written on roads as faith is found. Now let's go out to the world that God has given to us and take with us the blessing and the courage of God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go now in peace, never be afraid. God will go with you each hour of every day. Go now in faith, steadfast, strong, and true. Know He will guide you in all you do. Go now in peace, let joy you reach out to others, so all the world can see. God will be there, watching from above. Go now in peace, in faith and in love. Amen.